Welcome back, fellow Illumineers, to Be Our Guest. It's time to talk draft. Ravensburger has released official rules for draft and sealed over the weekend, and to help you get ahead of the competition, we've enlisted the help of the magnificent, the masterful, the magnanimous Wero the Great. Both Wero and I are avid drafters and have actually been drafting a homebrew format spearheaded by Knives Nerd Corner and Traverse Tavern over the last couple months. As such, we've got plenty of drafts and games to draw on to help you decide what to pick and when. Note, we'll be starting by covering solely commons and uncommons, as you'll be seeing and picking a lot more of them as they make up at least 75% of the pack. After we've got through all 6 colors, we'll come back with a 7th video compiling the rankings for all the rare, super rare, and legendary cards you can't wait to draft. So, if you want the key to crushing the draft competition at your local game store from 2 seasoned drafters, please be our guest. So, at the end of the video, we're going to have a chart where you can see everything ranked all nice and neat. If you want to just skip to that, by all means. I know some of you like to skip to the end of the books, and that's fine. But the rankings that we're going to go through is we're going to go through S, A, B, C, D, F. And what does that refer to? So, S tier will be first pickable cards, the cards that you want to slam down when you see them first in the pack. A tier will be ideally picks that you're going to get 2 through 4. So they're not necessarily first pickable. You would be satisfied with first picking them, but you want to see them in 2 through 4. B would be picks 5 through 8 where you're happy to see them. C would be cards that you're looking to wheel, but you're still happy to have them in your deck. D would be kind of the last picks, include if you must, hoping not to type thing. And F would be, don't include unless you absolutely have to. You have no other choice. Someone is holding you against your will. So we're on Ruby, yes?
Yes, Ruby. We got Abu, the mischievous monkey. The most fun thing about Abu is like everyone was speculating before he was revealed, oh, this is absolutely going to be Abu. And then it was Abu. And it's a very disappointing Abu because it's Kristoff, but worse.
Right? And Kristoff and Mickey were already like, fine.
Yeah.
Impressed me more than I expected them to, but that's not saying much. I expected them to be garbage, and Abu is. Mm-hmm. I've got him at D. You sounds like
yeah, probably like I mean, if you're in Amber, this is. I would at least put him in C.
Okay.
He does have 2 lore at the very least, but. It could be better.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm thrilled if my opponent's playing Abu, even if they get 2 lore out of him, because I'm going to have the easiest trade ever. But I mean, yeah, I get your point. Like, I'd still rather him over our next option at 3 ink, right? Because he's still 3 strength, he's still got 2 lore. But yeah, he's just not doing it for me.
So the problem with Aladdin Street Rat is...
So many problems. There's only one? You've only got one problem?
Yeah, the problem with Aladdin Street Rat is he works better in construction when you have 4 of him.
Yeah.
Whereas in draft, unless you like keep getting him pack after pack, then he could be real annoying. But the main strength of Street Rat is he's a shift target for Heroic Outlaw, which you really don't want to be depending on a rare.
Yeah.
I would grab Street Rat if I had already drafted Heroic Outlaw, in which case that is a snap pick. Yeah. If you don't see Heroic Outlaw, this is also a C. Yeah. 1 lore is usually not going to swing a draft game.
Not only that, but sometimes it's not even right to play him on curve. Like, what if your opponent, if you're going first and your opponent doesn't even have 1 lore by the time you're on turn 3, then it's like, so I'm just playing a 3 ink 2/2.
You're spending 3 on a Sergeant Tibbs.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've got him at D, but you're right. I've got him at D with an asterisk of if I've got Heroic Outlaw, then I'm considering him. And I think you have to at that point. You may not like it, but the effect of bringing out Heroic Outlaw on 5 with haste, effectively, is too strong to deny. So I think at that point you're just kind of forced to have him in. But still don't draft him highly. If you have got Heroic Outlaw, please just know that you will get him pretty much whenever you want him if he's in the pack.
Yeah, because you're thinking about wheeling and stuff like that, and I'm just like, don't you want this in general?
No, I'm trying to think of, where am I grabbing him for sure. I'm much happier with Captain, with the Colonel's Lieutenant. I prefer Cerberus, I think.
to captain, but I still think anytime you've got a big body out, you're going to feel pretty solid about it from my experience.
I mean, I'm just kind of comparing this to Maui Hero to All right now, even though Maui's a rare. So, like,
I was going to say, can you compare the two?
Well, because, like, I'm just thinking in Constructed where, like, Maui slams down, swings out, kills something, and usually sticks around because he comes out at the same ink point as Dragonfire. And he usually does 2 for 1 because most things aren't going to have 5 strength that are going to be played on curve then. Captain does not have all of Maui's good stuff, but he's fine. I guess like B, C, low B, high C. Like he's fine. He's fine. I don't know what to say about
B
Captain.
just because I think again, Cerberus notwithstanding, because I think Cerberus is a high B for sure, but maybe even an A. We haven't gotten that far. No spoilers yet. But I do think anytime you can have a big body relatively early, and I would still count turn 5 as relatively early in the game.
Yeah.
Because drafts tend to go long. Draft games tend to go longer. I think that it makes a big difference. Like, anytime I've slammed down something that's like 5/5 or bigger, it feels like my opponent's kind of scrambling a bit. So that makes me happy.
I think what takes him down for me is definitely the higher strength versus willpower, because if I'm slamming down something that only has 1 lore, and I'm mainly going to be using it to kill other things, it needs to stick around. And I think that's what makes Cerberus better.
Yeah, which is why I do think Cerberus is better, but I think Cerberus is very good for a common. And I'm not differentiating between commons and uncommons here. I know Captain's an uncommon, but like relatively speaking, they're relatively accessible. I think that I'm happy with both. I'm just happier with Cerberus. I know how you feel about Donald Duck. Tell me how you feel about Donald Duck for anyone that hasn't watched all of our previous ones.
This is the same thing I'll have to say for Mini and for Genie Ever Impressive. A tier. This is one of the first 2 drops you want to grab. He is almost always going to 2 for 1. Unless your opponent has a similar card, he is almost always going to 2 for 1. And it is really those early turns that matter the most in draft.
Yeah. I mean, you still haven't sold me yet. You sold me on a few things over the course of these discussions, but I'm still on B with the 2/3s for 2. I really like them. I'm just looking at those first few picks to be picking up, hopefully, some rares. Or some of those, like, S-tier commons, uncommons that we've seen. Obviously, it depends, but, like, for example, just in this color, I'd be looking to pick up Dragonfire before this. So I'm hoping my first 2 picks are, like, good rares, and then I'm picking Dragonfire, and then maybe I'm picking this, like...
Okay, here's the thing, like
that.
A common or uncommon, I think for me, has to be S-tier for me to be picking it over a rare. So that's why I have Donald in
over
A.
some. Like, I think we can agree there's some dog rares.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, over a good rare, for sure.
Over a good rare.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm putting Donald in A. Like, you will absolutely pick Donald over, like, even, like, mediocre rares.
Yeah. All right, who do we have next?
Next, we have Elsa Ice Surfer, who I think we can pretty safely put in low C to high D tier.
Yep.
You may draft an Ana. How much is this going to matter?
Yeah, absolutely. And even then, are you even in Ruby Amethyst, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you have to both be in Ruby Amethyst and find an Ana to make this not a more expensive wardrobe / whatever you want to call it. This is... I kind of out of anger put this as F, but yes, it's probably a D / low C. I mean, it's still a body, but 4 costs for this.
Like, if you want to make the argument of, it's a shift target for Spirit of Winter, like if you're drafting Spirit of Winter, you're an Amethyst already, and Queen Regent is a common, and it's better than this.
Yeah. So unless you've seen other good cards, this is not the reason to go into Ruby if you're drafting that deck. Yeah, for sure. One quick thing about this, because I said this about You Forgot Me, but I feel this way about Elsa as well. Does this feel like Ruby needed a card? And they're like, we got an extra in Amethyst, here you go. This doesn't feel like a Ruby card to me.
The art definitely doesn't feel that way. Maybe, I don't know. I think they were kind of trying to figure out Ruby a little bit in this first set.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like, what can we do to spice up Ruby? Let's just throw an Elsa in there. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, like, she does ready herself. Like, I don't know. That's the problem. Is like, Ice Surfer is such a non-entity. I forgot what she does.
The thing is, even readying herself isn't that potent an ability when she's one lore. So what does she do? She quests for one lore, and then you can ready her and then challenge in, like, or double challenge in the same turn. Sure, that's probably the more impactful way to use her. But even then,
I guess
it's not
it's
like you're thrilled.
kind of equivalent to like support, but you only get to do it once.
Yeah. I wouldn't rank this anywhere near support, even if it goes off.
Maybe if we see a bunch of Annas in subsequent sets, but even then, drafting, you are stuck in one set. There's one Anna in this set. Don't
never say never. You know, Magic used to do the like 3-set drafts. You could maybe do that. They won't do that, but
yeah,
they won't do that. That's fine. Let's move on. All right, Gaston, Arrogant Hunter. I'm actually still mixed on this one. How do you feel about him?
I think I'd put him solid B. You need to know when to play him. He is not a 2-drop.
Yeah.
Or at least he's not a 2-drop if your opponent played a 1-drop.
Yeah.
Because then he's just going to take out the 1-drop. He'll take out every 1-drop, but like, unless it's an Olaf, you really don't want him doing that. But like mid-game, I think he's better.
Yeah. Once you've kind of cleared out the chaff.
Yeah. He can take out a lot.
Yeah.
And he only costs 2.
I think you're right. So I think that's a fair assessment, and that's maybe how I've been misplaying him. Is I've got him at C because I've been playing him relatively early and just hoping that I'm clearing it out. And even in that, I was relatively okay with if this clears out a 1-cost 2/2. It's not like a huge fail state. You've traded down 1 ink. But I think you're right. I think that probably the better way and the optimal way to play him is probably like a mid-game play once you've hopefully cleared out some of those 1-drops. Yeah. Or even if they've got a 1-drop, if it kind of forces them to only exert that 1-drop and nothing else for a turn, that's kind of a good effect as well, right? You're only trading down 1 ink and you maybe stall their...
But also, like, if you think about, like, the worst case is they don't have something on the board for him to hit into, and then he just sits there because he can't quest.
Yeah, that is also a problem, right? Yeah, I mean, I think C is probably where he belongs, but B could be...
I'll stick with B. Because
you're almost swaying me. I'm almost there.
Because of what he can do a little later in the game.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I think there's enough states where you'd be happy to have him on the board that, yeah, you might be right. He might be a B. All right. Yeah. Well, we know what this one is. Who we got next? This is
Goofy Daredevil. This is an easy S tier. This is... You take him over a lot of rares.
Yeah.
Because evasive wins drafts.
Yep. Remember when we thought Tigger was a higher rarity, and I was like, why would I ever want Tigger over Goofy? Like, on evasive, yeah, I mean, yes, in theory, if you're facing another evasive deck, Tigger comes in handy, because a lot of them have 4 willpower, but, like, I just want the cheap evasive and just go, go, go. Give me the Pongos, give me the Goofies. Let me just race you to the finish line.
Well, like, Tigger makes more sense now that we've seen Queen Regent, so we know what the Lorcana team seems to think stat lines are supposed to be.
Yeah, fair.
Which I'm
still happy with Tigger, don't get me wrong. I just think relative to Goofy, I'd rather have Goofy. Like, I've had that in the same, where you've got the 2 of them in the same pack, and it's like, I'm picking Goofy almost all the time.
Absolutely.
The only time I wouldn't is if I was already stacked with like 5 Goofies, and it's like, well, I need to change my curve. I need to fix my curve a little bit here or something.
Yeah.
Even then, I probably still would, because I'm like, you know what? I'll just play Goofy on 6 and see if I've got a 1-drop. Yeah. Do I have him at S or do I have him at A? I've got him at A, but honestly, like, again, it's because I'm hoping that my first pick is a good rare. But I'd be happy to pick him first. I'm just not looking to pick him first.
Absolutely. No, if you pass Goofy, he does not come back to you.
Oh, never.
If you don't take him, someone else takes him.
Do not ever assume you're wheeling this man. If you are, you're in a terrible draft pool, and you should find yourself a better caliber of competition.
Well, I mean, like, you'll take all the prize packs.
Right. The only time he should ever wheel is if you're in like pack 3 and nobody has drafted
Ruby. In Ruby, yeah.
Right? Then you might, and probably still people will hate.
Yeah, if all the previous packs are just street rats and ice surfers.
Right?
And
Maybe you find your slot and you just get all the goofies in pack 3 and 4.
Yeah. It's like, I'm going to pivot to Ruby.
All right. Next we got Minnie Mouse, always classy. Knives' favorite, like, S tier pick.
I would put this as a solid B. Yes, it's going to survive. Yes, it's going to quest. Minnie can't take out anything. Which is kind of like a win more thing. Like, if I'm already in a position where I would prefer to quest than challenge,
Yeah.
why do I care about a 1-drop? Like,
Yeah, like, for example, when I was playing in the seal deck yesterday, Olaf I would almost always ignore. So he would get 3, 4, 5 lore, but it's because I was falling behind, so I needed to deal with the more imminent threats. So yes, if you're ahead, then he could be great for 1 ink, right? But if you're at parity or behind, it is awful, which is why I have him in... I have him at D, but I think I upped it to C. Or her. Sorry, this isn't Olaf we're talking about.
Yeah,
the same difference, right?
I mean, they're the same card.
I've got her at D, but I think I upgraded Olaf to C. So I can push it that far, but I can't push it to B for a 1.
I would put them both in B because they are 1-drops, and as I was like, you want to be playing stuff early in draft.
I will say that I think there's a lot less early plays in Ruby than there are in Amethyst, so I think you might actually value Minnie Mouse more in Ruby than in Amethyst. So you can make that argument.
Yeah.
All right, who do we got next?
My F or D pick here. We have Moana, chosen by the Ocean.
We can both agree on F, I think.
Take-All the Burning One is a super rare, and Take-All Heartless is a legendary, and the Burning One will get there when we get to the rares. I think she's kind of trash. Heartless is great, but like, this secondary ability is never happening.
Yeah.
And these stats are pretty trash for their cost. So D or F.
If there's no other cards in your color, feel free to take Moana.
Yeah. This is your last thing you take. She will wheel, because unless you literally saw you passed a Take-Ha and you didn't see it come back, then maybe you take Moana, but otherwise no.
There aren't sideboards in Lorcana that we know of, so
it's pretty standard. You can sideboard and draft.
Yeah, it's just they haven't mentioned that because it's pretty standard. You can sideboard and constructed too, and best out of 3, right? So the fact that that word hasn't even creeped into their vocabulary at all through this whole process leads me to believe that they might not have that.
I wouldn't worry about it too much.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, she's an F, so we can just move on.
Yeah.
Peter Pan, Fearless Fighter.
Again, like, why is he 2 willpower? This is just worse for Fiki.
Yeah.
I guess if you're in Ruby and you really need something, I would put him as a C. He is removal, but he's a removal that's not going to stick around.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same argument as Freeze. Was it Freeze? Yeah. In Amethyst, which is it's not particularly good removal, and Stampede, quite frankly, in Emerald. It's not particularly good removal, but it is removal.
I would value Freeze higher than Pan because Freeze can open up a target.
So I would value Pan a little bit higher if you know you don't have a lot of uninkables in your deck. If you've got even a few, his value goes way down for me because as opposed to Rafiki where I'll make room for him, I'm not necessarily keen to make room for Pan because the difference is substantial when you can usually get a 2-for-1 with Rafiki in the early game. And there's very few situations where you're doing that with Pan unless you're running into like a Hey or something. So
it is kind of funny how just swapping out Evasive for Rush makes this character so much worse.
And the better Peter Pan is inkable. If those two were reversed, I mean, I don't understand what they were thinking here. You mentioned this in a previous video. Ruby kind of got shafted a little bit.
Yes, absolutely.
Speaking of which,
Ruby has a great high end.
Yeah, I agree.
But
speaking of shafted a little bit, which we didn't realize because this is still an amazing card. Feel free to intro it, but
Pongo Old Rascal. Even though Tinkerbell Most Helpful exists, Pongo Old Rascal is still an S tier card. Evasive wins games. Same, it copy paste what we said for Goofy. This is one ink less. Yeah, Pongo wins drafts.
Yeah, I almost like Pongo better than Goofy, I think. Just because, again, I'm kind of anticipating that I'm not in the mirror match, right? And if I'm not in the mirror match, then I'm just always wanting as early as possible that 2 lore evasive. Like, on turn 4, you can race so easily. Like, there's almost nothing that they can do. And if worse comes to worse, he can chip away at one of their 1-drops if you really need to. And survive most of the time. I can't think of any 1-drops that has 3 strength on defense.
I mean, what I will say in Goofy's favor is Goofy can take out all cheaper evasives and survive.
Yeah, that's true. So, I mean, he can take out Pongo and all that. Again, this is assuming that he's not on the mirror match. They're both really, really good. But I'm thinking if
well,
they're in the
also,
same
think
pack,
about Amethyst. Yeah. Amethyst does have Jetsam.
Yeah.
Jetsam will kill Pongo. Goofy will kill Jetsam.
Yeah, I've never really had that issue because other than Jelinan, who drafted that one deck with the 1 Flotsam and all the Jetsams, I haven't come across too many matches where people have just really aggressively drafted Jetsam, so I'm dealing with a bunch of them. So if I've, got a Dragonfire, one of them. But yes, also, probably I've got Goofy in the same deck. I'm just thinking if I have them in the same pack, I'm probably taking Pongo over Goofy. You're taking Goofy first?
No, I would probably still take Pongo first. I'm playing devil's advocate here.
No, by all means, do that. Absolutely do that. I've still got him at A just because it's a high A. Like, I would pick 2, 3, but I don't think I'm terribly thrilled. I'm as happy as I was with Goofy first picking him, but I'm still hoping to pick a good rare plus in my first pick. So, all right, moving on to one that, Rapunzel letting down her hair.
So she has the same ETB as Street Rat.
Yeah.
She is uninkable.
Yeah.
But she is a 5/4/2 lore.
Yeah.
Those are decent stats.
They're decent. For the longest time, I kept thinking she was a 6/5, and even then I wasn't thrilled. But then I realized she was a 5/4. I'm like, ooh.
You are paying 1 more for an inverted Jumbo Jukuba, but by that point, by the time she is coming out, she will do something.
Yeah. So the problem that I have with her is the uninkable. Because if I was just paying 6 for a 5/4/2 lore that took 1 back, it's when I've played her, she's actually done fairly well for me. I've been relatively happy. Not thrilled, but relatively happy with her. It's the uninkable that kills me. Kind of the same argument as Peter Pan. Like, you're going to have to judge where you're at. I would not looking to be picking her up more than late picks in the first couple packs. And once I've kind of figured out if I've got a lot of uninkables or not, then maybe in later packs she might bump up the pick order a little bit. But
also, just eyeballing all the Ruby cards, at common and uncommon, the only uninkables are Peter Pan and Rapunzel. That's it.
Yeah.
So the fact that she's uninkable doesn't really matter to me all that much.
I mean, you got to factor in you're going to have a second color, right? So it depends on what else you're in, right?
Yeah.
But just word to the wise, just be cautious, because you don't want to end up in a situation like the Ruby Emerald starter decks. I've been burned by that too much now. I've got that fixated in my brain, the Ruby Emerald starter deck. So what do you have her at then?
I got her at just a... Sorry, my mind is already going ahead to the next one. I think I do have Rapunzel at a B.
Yeah, I've got her at low seed, to be honest with you. I'm still fine to pick her, but I want to be picking her late.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even think you... So this is one I don't know that you can get her necessarily late. I haven't seen her...
Yeah, because she is probably not going to wheel.
Yeah. People like big bodies. It's fair.
Yeah.
All right, Scar Fiery Usurper.
C. He is a shift target for Shameless Firebrand, but Shameless Firebrand is garbage.
Please don't search for shift targets.
No, you can see the last draft video that I put up on my YouTube channel. Yeah. Jelinan drafted 3 or 4 Shameless Firebrands, and there was one game where he was just able to get out these chunky scars. And I think it was just sort of the testament, I was not drawing anything good in my deck, that was he just war of attrition won there. But the other 2 games just utterly pasted him.
Yeah,
because
of course you did.
It's just some trash. And
Spoiler alert: Scar Shameless Firebrand is hot garbage.
It's kind of bad.
Honestly, I've got Fiery Usurper at D. Yeah, he can trade up, but I've just had him trade down so much more frequently than trade up.
Yeah.
You know, if he had more lore, well, then he probably wouldn't be 4 cost. But if he had more lore, I might be interested. But yeah, I don't know. I don't love him. I'll let you intro the next since you love these guys.
Sergeant Tibbs, Courageous Cat. Like, yeah, again, like, I really like the cheap, best stats for their ink cost. So the Sergeant Tibbses, the Donald Duckses, yes, please.
Yeah.
I have them in A. I'm not picking them first, but I am grabbing them before someone else does.
Yeah, fair enough. Again, I've got them at B just because I'm hoping I can get some, but I would push that up. Like, if I'm deep into pack 2 and I realize I haven't gotten any at that point, then pack 3 and 4, I'm definitely pushing them up the chart because I want to have at least 2 or 3 of these. So, okay. Yeah. Tigger, Wonderful Thing. This is
again
A, right?
So solid A for me. So he's not an S tier just because he's a 6-drop.
Yeah.
But absolutely, you want to be grabbing him. You pick Goofy and Pongo first, but then Tigger's your next pick.
I think you're fortunate if you're getting him late in the kind of first rotation. So late in like pick 6, 7, 8, you're probably fortunate. So you might have seen him there, and you might still. But at that point, you should be like, yeah, this was a good pick. I've got him as kind of low A, high B, but I think probably more often than not, he'd slot in at A for me. Yeah, Evasive is just so good in drafts.
It's
surprising. I know, this is a revelation to anyone that's ever played TCG. All right, we've got my... we got one before then. What's our next one?
Our next one is Cut to the Chase, which, let's cut to the chase. It's an F tier. This card is garbage. Why does this cost 2? Why does this cost 2? I understand why it exists, but why does it cost 2? This should cost 1. Yep. If you want this to do anything, it should cost 1.
Yep. Like, at what point is this actually having an impact? Like, turn 6? Turn 7? Like...
yeah, I guess I've been sitting with this in my hand for some reason. Yeah. I top deck something that's below my ink curve, and okay, I guess I'll rush it out. Yeah. But like, I want to be rushing things out at least slightly on tempo. If this cost 1, I would put it in A tier. It costs 2. This is F.
Oh, I still wouldn't put it in A tier, but I'd definitely be looking to play it at 1. It's an F though, for sure. All right. Well, the next one is my only S tier in Ruby, common and uncommon, and I think I did the count at like 3 total S tier commons and uncommons that I've got. Period. But Dragonfire is worth the uninkable cost.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Again, I want to be really careful about how many uninkables I've got in the deck, but this is making the cut over anything else in Ruby. Certainly,
yeah.
And I think anything else that's uninkable, because my other S tiers I think are all inkable.
So here's the thing, like, uninkables are mostly an issue in Constructed because you can just pick them out. Most cards are inkable. Yep. So it is not even a concern,
which is going to be the volume of your deck, right?
Yeah. So slamming Dragonfire, this is S tier.
Yep. Yeah. It always surprises me when I see this, like, even mid-pack. I'm like, this is better than a lot of Rare Plus in the game. Especially in Limited. So, awesome. Absolutely. What do we got next?
Next we have Fan the Flames, which I would put as a solid B. This can win a draft for you. There's really interesting things you can do with this. You can ready, say, Snow Queen, so you can exert something else. Yep. There is a lot you can do this, and it costs 1. Like, this kind of effect should.
Yeah.
And it's inkable. Yeah. It's not a first pick, so like B.
B. Okay, I thought you were going to say A. Yeah, B I can agree with. Because like any one-of effects, I'm really cautious putting over like a B. I want it in the last half of the kind of first pack rotation. But yeah, absolutely. So much of Limited, even though the games tend to stretch on, so much of Limited is that War of Attrition is like just trying to eke out slight advantages over your opponent and or race them to the finish line. And when you can both quest and challenge in the same turn, or challenge twice if you got a really good setup. If you got like captain on the board and they got a bunch of little guys, and you can like challenge, fan the flames, challenge, and survive to basically have a third crack at that, then you're real happy.
Yes.
Yeah, especially against like a go wide deck. If you're high end, right, and they're go wide, this will help you annihilate some of that board real cheap. So I like it at B. By contrast, he's got a sword.
I would honestly also put this at B. I have played against people who he's got a sword when that would have given them a favorable trade. Like it's the same deal as Vicious Betrayal, except it's worse because Ruby gets shafted, but it's still decent. This can help you get favorable trades. It lets stuff trade up. If you have something that's like really lopsided, like Moana, if for some reason you picked her, this can be surprising because it's a combat trick. And I think you disagree with me, but combat tricks.
So this is the problem I have, because, like, for example, and again, I hate to go back to the starter decks, but they're very close to playing in a limited format, right? They're inconsistent, not very powerful decks, right? And I would have these cards just rotting in my hand because I had the right challenge, or I had no challenge at all. There was one time where I got a favorable challenge with this, and this was with a 2/2 on a Dr. Facilier that was exerted, so I could challenge in for 4. But then my character was subsequently eaten on the next turn by a 3/3. So like,
okay, well, all right. I'm not slamming this. I'm not picking this as my first thing, and I'm definitely not picking this over something like Fan the Flames. But I don't mind it being in my deck.
I don't mind it being in my deck because it is both inkable, and there are situations where it is usable. So I'm not going to put it at a D, because I'll still probably put it as a C over, some bad uninkables or like a healing glow or something like that. But for me, it's a very low C, and possibly even a high D. Effectively, I intend to use this as ink 90% of the time, and then maybe it becomes useful every once in a while. For me, this is only really good when I've got a high willpower character and low strength, such that it survives the challenge, and it takes out something it wouldn't otherwise. Because then you're at card parity at least. But if you're either trading up with a character and both of yours are getting banished, or, that's the most common situation. I was about to give an or, but there isn't really an or. But if you're trading up with like a 2/2 against a 4/4, right? Yeah, you're trading up with something that wouldn't necessarily have value, but you're also 2-for-1ing yourself. So
I get that you're thinking a lot about like hand parity and card advantage, and that is important. But I would say that
down so much.
But board control is also important.
Yeah, it is.
So even if that means you're spending resources from your hand, if you have a board and your opponent doesn't, that is also important.
Yeah, I've gotten run over by Amber Amethyst enough times to recognize that, but at the same time, it's just like, again, there are times where it is useful, but there's so many times where I feel like I'd just rather throw this down at ink. The reason why I like it is almost because it's not a card that I worry about throwing down as ink. Like, it's not like, my captain that I'm like, I could use this as ink, but I don't really want to. This is just like, hooray! I'll throw that down as ink, no problem.
That's how I feel about Be Our Guest.
Fair. You didn't need to go low blow, but that's fine. All right, what do we have next?
The card. Next we have Tangle, which is another easy F. Like, this is bad and constructed. It's bad and limited. Why does this cost 2? Why does this cost 2? This should
Why does
cost
it exist?
1.
No, why does it
cost
exist?
1 and make them
an action
lose
card
2
that says they lose the lore.
No, what this should be, this should cost 1 and make them lose 2. That is what this should be. That would be a fair effect that I would put in a deck.
I agree with that. Yep,
this
I agree
is
with
garbage.
that. Yep. Yeah, that I could go for. Okay. We've got one more left. Yeah, Shield of Virtue. I expected to like this more.
This, I think, is going to be decent in drafts.
Yeah.
Just because you can quest or swing out, and then, oh, ho, ho, you can't touch me. And you were talking about, like, card advantage.
Yep.
For this is something that stays on the board. It's unlikely it's going to get removed. And it is not something you have to worry about cards in hand. It's like, I'm just going to keep this on the board. So like, let's say I have a Making a Wish or something out. I quest, I spend 3. Sure, I'm spending 3, but this stays on the board. This is ready. Or I can, if I need to, I can challenge again. It's a very flexible thing. But again, it's not the first thing I'm picking. So I'm going to put it at a B. Yeah,
I've got it at B as well, but that was me actually expecting it to like it more than I do. Because I'm just so used to draft environments where you almost want a sink for your resources. We call it a mana sink in Magic, and obviously I guess ink sink, which is awful because it rhymes and not in a good way. But something to put your ink into when you've got nothing better to do. Right? Usually those are good in a limited amount in draft because you run out of things to do. You run out of resources. I've just found that doesn't come up as often as I anticipated. So unless I'm drawing this in the later game or mid game, like early game, I'm almost always inking it because I'm like, I don't even know if I'm getting that far to be able to dump something into this. So I don't know. But I do like the effect because, yeah, I do worry about, card advantage and card parity and all of that. But items I like because they're reusable effects. So even if you don't necessarily get a straight up card for it, or it's hard to gauge whether you do or not, the fact that it's a repeatable effect that has value, right? To be able to get a couple of favorable attacks. Like let's say you've got a board of 2 2s and 2 3s and 3 3s that you're playing against, and you've got a 4 4. Well, ideally you're going to run that into a 3 3, but then they're going to run their lowest guy into it. Whereas if you're going to run it into the 3 3, ready it and then run it into another 3 3, you're loving life, right? So I think that it's an effective enough ability that when repeatable will get you effective card advantage.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I've got it at B as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Ruby in the books. Done it, or at least common and uncommon. All right. We'll stop it here. See everyone soon. Check the outro.
Thank you everyone for watching. It's truly an honor to see you enjoying our videos. Thank you to Lorcana.com for having us as one of their featured creators, and thank you to the amazing community coming together around this incredible game. Please like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments what you'd like to see on our next video. Until next time, if you'd like to continue with us on this journey, please be our guest.